Hello, this is Miao Xiaojuan in Brussels. The European Union and its 28 member states provide half of the official development aid in the world and two-thirds of global humanitarian aid. However, with only 2 years left to achieve the UN Millennium Development Goals, the Union has no choice but mobilize more efforts. In the meantime, Europe is also looking into a common vision for the global development agenda after 2015. Well, to find out whether and how the Union wants to keep the leadership, today I will be joined by Development Commissioner Mr. Andris Piebalgs in the studio. Commissioner, thank you for coming. First of all, let's have a look at the European Development Days in the heart of Europe.
Thousands of politicians and experts from across the world gathered in Brussels for the two-day event of the 8th European Development Days. They widely exchange ideas at this forum about the future of global development agenda after 2015. The event is organized by the European Commission to fully engage in the civil society, business and academia on development issues. High-level officials from the European Union and the African Union participate in the conference, as well as top leaders from Liberia, Niger, Cape Verde and Jamaica.
We gathered today to share our ideas around the vision for the post-2015 agenda. The European Union is determined to help shape this agenda as a constructive partner in the post-2015 process.
Through this premier forum on development cooperation, the Commission hopes to seek common responses to global challenges of poverty eradication and sustainable development. It also aims to inspire open and inclusive thinking about development issues.
On the basis of this outreach, the European Union has formulated an initial vision on the future of the development agenda. We have always been at the forefront of efforts to eradicate poverty, and we will remain so.
Barroso also said climate change is the single most pressing global issue today.
The European Union remains in the lead of the global climate action. Our ambitious 2020 targets are on track. We also remain a leading donor of global climate funding. In fact, our new 7-year budget will dedicate 20% of our external aid to climate action. We will shortly propose a new energy and climate framework for 2030, mapping out the further greening of the European economy.
Development is at the heart of the 28-nation bloc's external actions. Its overarching objective is to eradicate poverty in the context of sustainable growth, including the achievement of the Millennium Development Goals. More than half of all the money spent on helping poor countries comes from the Union and its 28 member states, making it the largest donor in the world. According to the latest Eurobarometer survey, two-thirds of European citizens believe that tackling poverty should be one of the main priorities for the European Union. 7 of 10 believe that helping developing countries also benefit the Union and its citizens.
Commissioner, could you briefly introduce the current development policy? What are the main objectives and what has been achieved so far?
Well, our current policy is based very much on the assumption of alleviation poverty globally. And the benchmark are Millennium Development Goals. It's true that in our approach to the alleviation of poverty, we very much focus also on governance issues and also some other cross-cutting issues like gender. In recent times, we changed this paradigm because there have been very substantial movement of eradication of poverty globally. And I think that it was right that we are now also more focusing on growth-related areas, particularly agriculture, and also another area that we are looking very closely, support of energy access. So these two aspects came together, and now I would say ambition is eradication of poverty globally.
And you said the MDGs are the benchmark. So to what extent has the Union contributed to the MDGs?
Well, I believe we really have managed quite a lot of support globally. First of all, it's more than 50% of ODA actually came from the European Union. Then millions of children have access to education. Then millions of mothers got access to the assisted childbirth. Then also we invested a lot of health systems of partner countries, and that decreased children mortality. We also invested in Global Fund and Gavi. So we did a lot of elements, but I think particular focus was access to drinking water. And I could mention just one example. Chad was a very fragile country, and still in Chad, the government, together with our support, will achieve access to drinking water MDG by 2015. So that is a huge achievement, not only for Chadians, but also for us.
But we only have 2 years left. In how much confidence do you have in achieving all the goals by 2015?
Well, I come from the premise that we need to achieve all of them because there should not be a priori approach that we will not achieve them. The most difficulties are two, I would emphasize. One is maternal mortality, because it affects the whole health system needs to be rather sophisticated really to get down the maternal mortality, particularly in sub-Saharan Africa. And the other is sanitation. Because with drinking water we made a very good progress on sanitation and it did not go so well. So we mobilized 1 billion euro additional funding, so-called MDG facility, where we support particular countries in the areas where MDG has not been achieved. Will it be sufficient? I don't know, but that's all the money we have had that we could mobilize additionally.
And what is your vision for the post-2015 global development agenda? You have been talking about that on a lot of occasions.
Yeah, I participated also in this high-level panel I came actually for this high-level panel of eminent persons from the premise that we need to conclude the work that was started by the MDGs, because MDGs means of halving. It doesn't mean to go to zero target. And I believe that we needed to keep the same system in place just to go further, that each child is at school, that there is no mothers dying while giving childbirth. The children mortality in, children mortality in Malawi is the same as in Latvia. So these type of things that I was looking very much for. But our partners, particularly coming from the developing countries, they definitely said that its three issues are also important. First is access to jobs, employment. Second, it is access to justice. And third, what they mentioned, it is definitely sustainability, environmental sustainability. So as a result, the global proposals that we made from high-level panel is that we need to address comprehensive agenda post-2015 with a limited number of goals, and panel made indicative goals and targets. And these are, I think, well chosen. So now it is from UN member countries to discuss it. But I believe where there is already some type of consensus that we don't need just to stay with extreme poverty. So it should be comprehensive, the life that we would like for ourselves and for others. So that is objective that post-2015 framework should give.
But in this comprehensive framework, where do you think Europe should stand?
First of all, definitely applying this framework at home, but second, to have solidarity. Solidarity that we have inside the European Union, in solidarity towards the countries where starting point is by far lower, or the challenges that the countries face are by far more difficult. And I could mention Sahel or Horn of Africa as good examples where even the best governments in the world would have a lot of challenges more than in my country, where basically things are moving in the right direction, and in some cases only you need to accelerate them.
You just mentioned solidarity. I wonder, within the European Union, isn't development policy a bit fragmented now?
Well, what I mentioned inside the European Union, it was always a bit fragmented, because through the community, I work yearly more than 10 billion of euro in grants that I provide globally through the EU. But it's roughly only 20% of the whole EU development aid. So that means more than 40 billion euro are provided by member states. to deal with this, we have as a concept now so-called joint programming. That we look at the country's framework, national development plan, and try to anticipate what we will do in supporting these countries. And that means that we still have different financial frameworks, but we have one political framework. And then this fragmentation then is definitely by far less evident than in previous time. You could definitely ask why not to channel all the money through the EU. I would say, well, member states don't want this. They would like to keep their own footprint in the world. So it is a balance in a way, and the best way to find the right balance is really working together on the programs that we try to implement in our partner countries.
Because it's shared competence between the Union and the member states, right?
Exactly. So it will, for member states could decide that one day perhaps all development aid channels through the European Commission, but at least the trend is not there.
And apart from that, isn't it also being overshadowed by the crisis and other development in foreign and security policies like trade or security?
I would say trade and security has not so much influence, but what has influence definitely is economic crisis. That definitely has influenced. If I see EU budget, so in the previous 7 years and compared with next 7 years, my service will have roughly the same amount of money plus inflation plus 0.2 for EDF countries and 2% in general foreign policy budget. So slight growth we have. But if I see member countries, then the pattern is very different. There is a definitely strong performance of UK. There's still strong performance of 4 countries that are over 0.7. It is Luxembourg, Denmark, Sweden, and the Netherlands. So we have this mixed performance, but there was decrease strong in Spain. There is low level still bilateral in Italy, and these are not small countries, these are big countries, and definitely Germany could have performed better in my opinion. So we have mixed performance. Today we have from our objective to have 0.7% of GNI for 2015, we are at 0.42, so it's a lot still need to be done, and particularly on bilateral. And in bilateral part it's always more challenging because it's competing priorities. You need to cut government spendings in education or increase the aid for third countries. So it's not so easy to argue. But UK example definitely demonstrates that you can if you continue to be focused on this issue. And UK is making such a progress that this year they will achieve this target of 0.7% of GNI for development aid.
Based on the 2014 to 2020 financial framework, which direction is European development policy going towards?
We definitely continue to focus in a core mandate, as I saw, poverty alleviation, poverty eradication. In a broader sense, supporting what just in very short abbreviation would be inclusive and sustainable growth. Because understanding is that a lot of countries have now good potential of growth. The point is to sustain the growth, to tax and to separate the national income in the interest of more vulnerable people, and definitely to make a growth that does not destroy the basis of the growth by environmental degradation. So that is the direction we are going. We are also trying to learn some things that we did not use in the past so strong. Because I am working on the ground, with the ground. So in Africa, yearly we disburse between 4.5 and 5 billion euro in grants. It's an enormous amount of money. But still it's not enough, and perhaps we can use more the instrument of blending between grants and loans. So we have experience with working with EIB, but we are working more nowadays with member states development banks, with African Development Bank, with Asian Development Bank, with Inter-American Development Bank, with World Bank. Because seeing that our grants could attract more soft loans, and that definitely provides for necessary investments in infrastructure and also in human capacity. So I believe we need to use grants of the European Union as a catalyst for change and not just use them and then wait for new ones. So the whole logic is to create more money out of the grant.
Commissioner, you have been calling for a decent life for all by 2030. So could you explain what is a decent life in your opinion?
Well, I think the decent life is, first of all, to live in a life free of conflicts and insecurity. Because in Europe we have this privilege, but in a lot of parts of the world it's not the case. If it's not there, that it doesn't work. Then definitely is that in the life where the basic ingredients are that kids have decent food, that they have access to decent education, and that there is a health care in it. And then the issues of what I always emphasized, employment, access to labor markets, that their skills could be used, and also the issue of their political rights and their, well, human rights that should be implemented through the country's legal systems. And that is in a lot of countries still not the case. So it is building up, but I believe a lot of elements exist today all across the world, I would say nearly all the countries. It's just the level of these elements are not there. And I believe with external financing, and with more focus of the countries themselves on very clear blocks, you could try to achieve the situation where each member of society says, I am not forgotten. Society does not care about me. And I think that is decent life for everybody, that each person could realize his personality in the world still that will have many challenges, and I can't guarantee that we could cope that everybody will be happy. That's not the purpose. But the purpose that nobody is hampered because he is poor. And I think that's the bottom line that we try to achieve.
Sounds like Europe has a very clear vision, but what about other projects going on in Europe, the development projects? Are they effective in promoting a decent life? Or is there a gap between what's needed and what's offered so far?
I think there is a challenge that a lot of countries that have worked start from very low point. Low points that there is no infrastructure there, that there are no savings, that there are still conflict going on, that political parties are still not mature enough. So there is a lot of these type of challenges that are prevented. And change you can't bring from outside. Change comes from inside the country. Because the concept of sovereignty, even in the small country, is so strong that you can't expect to export a model. So the country should believe in itself and design a model it would like to achieve and start to build the start to build the basis of this. And this requires definitely a lot of tough decisions. Then there is the issue of tax, introduction of tax. In a lot of countries, there is redistribution less than 10% of the gross national product. You can't expect to bring, healthcare and education and some social programs if you don't tax more than at least 10%. That is impossible. So it's a lot of things that prevents. And then there is one thing that I believe is very crucial and we are supporting. Europe basically is a union of small countries. And there's different reasons why union has established it. But where I see the potential is that definitely we have not market barriers in it. And it gives a lot of internal trade. If I take an African countries, then there is roughly 10% of trade is done inside the continent. Central America is the best part of it, 20-something. But there where the potential is, try to dismantle the barriers because that you can trade with each other. And there is no loser, there is win-win. But it's very difficult to understand to come to this type of conclusions because the changes are always making impact. And that needs political courage really to take these decisions. And you can't take these political decisions from outside.
So, Commissioner, development policy has been incorporated into the foreign and security policy in the Union. How does that affect the outcome of development policy? Is it becoming more and more politically motivated now?
Well, I wouldn't say that it's incorporated. It is in its own area, because I myself, I'm political independent, and also my service is working under my guidance. It's true that external service is a common service for external activities, but that means for development actions we agree with the external service. It doesn't mean that there is supremacy between us, who is the main. So both services work together and work with partner countries. What are the best programs that we need to support? So there is no incorporation in common security policy. Development policy, it's a policy in its own rights. And as I told, in treaty it says that the European Union goal is to alleviate and eradicate poverty. So that is the main reason for the money that we member states channel through us. And also during the budget discussion, from all the envelopes that we have, there is a clear task what part of the money should be audible, so that basically exactly measured for the development. And it is, I think now they're discussing would be 85 to 90% that should be audible. So basically the money is very much targeted for the benefit of the more poorest people.
We all know that emerging economies are also getting more active in this field. So Commissioner, what do you think of this new model of South-South cooperation?
No, I very much welcome it, because first of all, it's additional money. It's always important. But it's also true that there's no universal truth, and that I believe that it's any new actor that comes, it's very, very much welcome, because it helps the countries to overcome the difficulties. And I believe that it is very crucial that as many countries as possible do this. I have this year discussed with Kazakhstan, and in Kazakhstan I said, well, I have not good news for you. We stop bilateral program in the next years. So I said, well, it's pity, but we are creating our own development agency to help other countries. I said, that's great news. So in a way, it was very great news for both of us.
Okay, and Commissioner, my last question. Of all your trips to the least developing countries, what struck you the most?
I think personally, most I was shocked first time when I was Djibouti, malnourished children, because you go to the hospital where we support mothers and children, and I never expected that babies could be so small, so tiny and so quiet, because, well, I have had my own children. I remember them, well, rather noisy, rather active. And there you go, and there is very quiet. And I have seen since then a lot of malnourished children. And I believe that is a shame, that in the world that we have so much food, the kids that have their own food, they have not access. So my basically personal experience is you need to help children and old people. Well, everybody else should care about himself or herself. Definitely there is a government's role, but children should not suffer because grown-ups or international cooperation is late in supporting them, because it's not their fault, that's for sure.
That's our responsibility, right?
Exactly.
Thank you, Commissioner, and thank you for sharing with us. And that's all for today. Thank you for watching.
This is CNC World, a new perspective.